Welcome back to another episode of Game Time Discussions. I'm Kam with Emory Cuzzy. Today we're going to do another position ranking episode. This edition is going to be the defensive interior lineman. Today we have 7 guys that we're going to rank. A couple of honorable mentions to talk about as well. But it's one of those classes where it's kind of like there's a couple guys and then there's the rest.
Yeah. I think some guys help themselves throughout the draft process, of course. But yeah, it's not necessarily like a weak class. It's just interior defense lineman is not that important compared to the other positions. And then also those positions are really strong this year. So you're just not going to see very many of these interior defense linemen making it into the first 2 rounds, basically.
Right. So yeah, we'll start off with some honorable mentions. We have Leonard Taylor from Miami, Dwayne Carter from Duke, Michael Carter Jr. from Ohio State, all guys who probably would be tagged as a early day 3 pick, in that range, I would say.
Yeah.
Give me some, tidbits on some of those guys. I know Leonard Taylor is probably one of those that kind of fell a little bit. Give me a thought.
Yeah, Leonard Taylor was a 5-star coming out. You know, kind of the guy we expected to be the number 1 player in this class. I think if you would have kind of preseason taken a poll of all analysts, you would have seen him be either first or second, like no matter what. And he's just fallen so fast. I think it has a little bit to do with, the fact that he played in the A gap a lot more this year, over center and stuff. And he got a lot more double teams. He put a lot more 3 technique last year, which is in the B gap between the guard and the tackle. So as he moved inside, it was a little bit harder on him. My problem with him is he just lacks effort. Like, I have a real problem with that. I want, if I'm going to decide to like draft somebody, like I want the guy to be full speed ahead. We have guys on this list that you're like, wow, those guys just never stop moving. They're not as talented as Leonard Taylor, because Leonard Taylor will make plays where you're like, wow, that was amazing. How did he do that? But then you won't see him for the rest of the game. It's the Jadeveon Clowney effect. He comes through the line, hits the guy from Michigan, the helmet flies off, the ball falls on the ground, he picks it up with one hand. Yeah, he'll make those types of plays. But you just can't expect them very often. And he's not good enough to not make those plays all the time.
Yeah, and then next we got Dwayne Carter from Duke. He's probably the least known of the 3 of these honorable mentions. Give us a little bit of intel on him. Is he one that could possibly sneak into this rankings once we kind of get closer to the draft?
Honestly, it's gonna be really hard to sneak into this rankings. This ranking, the top 7 guys are really good. Dwayne Carter's really good too. Don't get me wrong. He just doesn't have the pass rush ability that the other guys above him do. He is I think he's a 3-time All ACC player. I know his first team this year. He's a very good player. Don't get me wrong. He's got great lateral movement, good hands, good size. His biggest problem to me is
one-dimensional.
Yeah, exactly. He just said not enough pass rush moves. Not going to get not going to do anything flashy. He's just going to be a good player. 4-eye, 3 technique that's going to play good in the run, but never push the pocket. Not going to be on the field on 3rd down, most likely. They'll probably bring in an extra edge rusher type of player, and that's the biggest problem with him. So I don't think that he's going to be a good player. He's a very consistent player, high motor, just never going to have the pass rush ability that some of the guys above him have, probably.
Yeah, and then last but not least, we got Michael Hall Jr. Out of Ohio State, one of the best defenses in the country. He kind of was a little bit overlooked, I would say. He wasn't one of the mainstays. Give me some intel on him and if he can.
So on film, he looks undersized, I'll be very honest. And then when you saw him at the combine, he wasn't. So that was kind of odd to me. But he has one of the best pass rush win rates. He's got an 18.3 pass rush win rate. But the problem is he's only a pass rusher. He's a situational pass rusher. We've talked about those guys in the past where he comes in and just rushes the passer. He doesn't stop the run. He gets blown off the ball in double teams. Like, you just can't expect him to be on the field all the time. And, that hurts his stock a ton especially with the guys above him, they're going to be on the field a lot. They're excellent at something, and he just, he was excellent at pass rushing, but he was by far the lowest on this list for stopping the run, by far. And so that's why he's definitely down here. Hurts his stock, but I love watching him rush the passer. Doesn't matter though, because you have to be able to be on the field.
Right. Yeah. So with that being said, let's get into our rankings. Like I said, we have 7 people. We're going to start off number 7, Brandon Darius, out of Oregon. 23 years old. Kind of I would say, what was it, a 5th-year senior?
Yeah.
So give me some thoughts on him and why he snuck in.
Well, Brandon Dorlus, he was just basically he's a tweener. So I couldn't put him at edge because he played a lot of edge at Oregon, but he most likely won't play edge. He'll probably play like a 3 technique. He can play 5 technique, right outside the tackle, right outside the guard. He'll never move in between the guards. That won't be anything comfortable for him. But he's a good athlete. He was super consistent playing for Oregon. He didn't have the best numbers. He had 5 sacks compared to some of the guys on this list, but he was a very serviceable player. I have some numbers here from this year. He played 253 snaps in the B gap, 159 at 4 tech, and then 160 outside the tackle. So alignment versatility, not uncomfortable with that. He's very quick, first step kind of guy. Comes off the line fast, makes the offensive tackle decide right now what he's going to have to do. And he'll be doing that same thing to guards at the next level. Gotcha. So that's kind of where I'm at with him.
With him, I haven't heard a ton of, I guess, positive draft stock in him as like a high draft pick. Would you consider that we're a little higher on him than consensus?
Actually, I think we're probably right around where I think most people are. I think, though, there's a gap even between him and the next guy, like where they're going to go in the draft. I think he's more of a late 3rd round, early 4th round guy. And the next guy will be much earlier. And then we're going to then really see 2nd round guys coming into.
So this is kind of the mark where we're pretty comfortable. 6 guys are going day 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then he's the guy that's kind of on the fence, but everybody else is pretty
there's a tier drop right after this one. And that has to do with just the fact that, he's a tweener that didn't run a very fast 40 too, for what we expected out of him. So
gotcha. So yeah, we'll move on. Next on the board, Kris Jenkins out of Michigan. Not a ton of sacks, but high pressure rate. Very successful as a graded PFF wise, and obviously younger. 2nd team All Big Ten. Give me some thoughts on him and why you have him at 6.
Well, I think one of the things that we don't have on this thing on the board with pressure rates, because pressure is what makes you a high draft pick. Being able to get after the quarterback, push the pocket, make fast twitch moves. We'll see some guys that have insane pressure rates later. But with Kris Jenkins, he had a 12.6% run stop rate, which is huge. I think you're a D tackle and you make tackles on 12.6% of the plays. That's basically what that means. That's a lot. So that is why he's here at this level. He had a pretty good split in the 10-yard. He's got really long arms. He's a good enough athlete, I guess is the way to put it. I wish he would have gone to the Senior Bowl. I wish we could have seen him against other people, because Braden Fiske, Darius Robinson, those guys were there and they helped their stock. Kris Jenkins could have done the same thing, because he is a leader. If you look at the Michigan defense, they had a lot of leaders all over the place. He is the leader of the D-line. He is going to tell you what to do. He is on top of you. He expects perfection. Type of guy that you want on your team for those reasons, a locker room guy. So he's definitely one of those guys that, will probably go early 3rd, maybe mid 3rd. I want to put him early 3rd, and I almost think if he would have gone to the Senior Bowl, he would have gone late 2nd.
And with that being said, just kind of informing our audience a little bit. Was it kind of an opt-out situation? Was he recovering from an injury? Was there any kind of indication on why he did skip out on the Senior Bowl?
I'm not sure. I have not heard anything from his camp. I know that they're gonna have the Michigan Pro Day. Oregon had their Pro Day today. Brandon Dorlus was there. So we'll get to see him, but right now he's at 6th because he wasn't at that. Wasn't there. I think that the next 2 guys are going to be guys that went and definitely improved their stocks.
Yeah. So like you said, Braden Fiske, obviously somebody that jumped off the screen at the combine, ran the fastest 40 of all defensive linemen, I believe.
Yes.
And
best jumps.
Best jumps, and he comes paired with alongside Jared Verse, who's another first round pick as an edge rusher. You love Florida State. Tell me a little bit about him and why you have him all the way at 5.
I think with Braden Fiske, he just has the highest motor of anybody you'll ever see. And it was apparent at the Senior Bowl. We watched him at the Senior Bowl, and he just was constantly moving. He's the same way in games. He just never stops. And we talked about guys earlier like Leonard Taylor, who are better athletes, better football builds and stuff than Braden, but Braden does it, and so that's why he's been climbing boards. Braden Fiske was probably a 4th rounder before this process started. He has been, I've heard, oh my gosh, I've heard people put him in the 1st round. Let's not get crazy. That's not where Braden Fiske is, but because of how well he has done in all of these draft things where his profile has been brought up and he's just built on it every time. He's gotten better every time. He's just he'll probably be a mid-second round guy. Does he deserve that? I don't know. He's older, he's a redshirt senior. He lacks, pass rush moves. I mean, if you look on the thing, 8.6 pressure rate, 12.9 pressure per snap. So I don't know that he actually has the capability to be a mid-second rounder. It's probably closer to a 3rd for me. But he's done everything right to make people think he is.
It's kind of one of those things where you've kind of outproduced based on your capabilities, and you did it so much to the point where now you're actually being overrated.
Yeah.
Compared to being the underrated tag, which is probably fits more the style in which he plays. But yeah, we'll move on. Number 4, we have Darius Robinson, graduate senior. He's one of those guys that another big time athlete, first team all the SEC. Tell me a little bit about him and why he's where he is.
Well, so Darius Robinson was not necessarily a true talking point prior to, so he's a little hard because he is a twinner also, like Brandon Dorlus was. You're going to get here. I have the numbers on this too. So in 2022, he played 323 snaps in the B gap. And then in 2023, he played 395 snaps outside the tackle. So he moved in and out a lot. I mean, he has A-gap snaps, 76 A-gap snaps, 22. So he's been everywhere on the D-line. And that's something that's obviously going to help him. But he's got insanely long arms. He's, super good athlete. Senior Bowl was the highest climber of any player, even over Braden Fiske. Dano Jeremiah had him in his top 32. And then after the Senior Bowl, he just jumped way up. But after the combine, he came back down to earth a little bit. The 4.95 was one of the worst of any of the edges in the draft. But he's definitely one of those guys that, he knows how to get faster. The 17% win rate is what you see and then 17.4% pressures per snap. That's all real. Those are real numbers. That's run. Incredible. I would implore anybody to go watch a Missouri defense. They run 2 head up on the tackle on both sides. So that means you have a 2-way go, of course, but you don't really have any advantage, basically. And he still had a 17% win rate. He's going to be moved in, like I said, to B-gap most likely. And he's going to be a menace rushing the passer against guards. Because guards, there's a reason guards are in there. They're better at run blocking, and their pass blocking isn't as good. That's why they need help. That's why they're there, because they have bookends on both sides of them. So yeah, he's definitely going to be a menace getting after the passer. So that's definitely a massive riser in this class.
Yeah, and then pretty certain with the most part after Devontae Sweat's performance. I know he was one that the weight was something that was a big talking point because, being over 360 pounds, is that good? Is that bad? Should he lose? Should he gain? He actually was rumored to be as high as 380 at the Senior Bowl, and that kind of really brought his draft stock down because people were just kind of like, we can't invest in this.
Yeah.
And then he showed up and was the exact same playing weight at the combine as he was last season. Killed it with a 5.27 40. That's the equivalent of a 4.26.
Yeah.
For a lean wide receiver.
170 pounder. Yeah.
So he's Allen Trophy winner, first team All-American. He did it all, catching touchdowns in bowl games, or Big 12 title games, excuse me. Tell me a little bit about him. Is he somebody that comes with as much risk as I think he might, or is he somebody that just kind of very safe where he is?
I think the risk part that you're asking about has not been seen. That's my biggest thing too, is like, if I said he's a top 20 player, no one would be mad at me. But if I said he was a top 50 player, no one would be mad at me. So like if I said with him, and I think the best stat is the fact that I have the stat here. Sweat had the most snaps of any UT interior defensive lineman versus Byron Murphy, who is also on this list above him. He was 503 snaps for Sweat, 438 for Byron Murphy. He had 70 more snaps than Byron Murphy this last year. And I guess I'm not the person that wants to put some sort of tag on him saying, well, he's overweight. That has been a bad thing in the past. He also, like you said, catches passes, is a good athlete, those types of things. He had a 15% win rate. I have a hard time getting mad at him for being the size he is when he's constantly doing it. First team All-American, Outland Trophy,
number one graded PFF defensive lineman.
Yeah, like he did it at that weight and he didn't have a single problem. I don't think I can get behind the fact that we're going to just be like, well, he's 360, 380. I'm not comfortable with it, right? If he went first D tackle off the board, would that surprise anybody? I don't think it should, really, because he has done it. His 2 sacks, it wasn't that he wasn't getting home. He had the pressures. He just isn't great laterally in space against quarterbacks, So that's another thing, too, is like he gets back there and he pushes them out of the pocket. But he only has 2 sacks because he pushed them out of the pocket and couldn't catch them, basically. So yeah, my biggest concern with him is he's 23 years old. So he had the opportunity to play the younger group. He's a little bit older. We'll see what that means, just based on developmental abilities.
Yeah, I mean, there should definitely be a role with him, even though he has the weight that he did. He's not just a, Vince Wilfork. I'm just literally going to hold my ground, and then y'all have to go around me. Like, he actually rushes the passer, very successful at that.
You have to use 2 blockers.
Yeah,
there's no way around that.
I mean, Vita Vea is like a good example of somebody that's just like overwhelmingly powerful. That just he has a spot. Secure spot. So, but yeah, transition over number 2, we have Byron Murphy, another Longhorn. It's just crazy how UT had the number 1 and number 2 defensive lineman according to PFF last year. Incredible athlete. He's one that's really vaulted up. He's in a lot of people's eyes the number 1 defensive lineman now. We have him at 2, just because it's a little more unproven.
Right.
So to speak. It's kind of a breakout. Tell me a little bit about him. Is he more of a product of his environment, or is he somebody that really deserves the praise that he's getting?
Well, I think he definitely deserves the praise. The reason he's not number 1 is, like we talked about, the breakout, of course. He got to play next to, Devondre Sweat, who is hard to block in his own right. And also the other guy just was super consistent multiple years in a row. It's so close. Like we talked about this the other day. It's so close. Both of these guys should be, if you're ranking, you find a spot and you put them next to each other, 11 and 12, 20 and 21, type of thing. You shouldn't put these guys separate, but the best parts about Byron Murphy is his pressure rate. He is able to push the pocket like crazy. 19.6 win rate and 16.1 pressure rate. Those are per snap, per pass snap. So he's pushing the pocket, getting a pressure on 16.1% of his snaps, which is just unheard of. That's why he's the second graded defensive lineman, I remember watching a play, and because I think, being able to see it happen, he has insane lateral quickness for his size. He has these massive legs, and his lateral quickness is pretty impressive for it. He was in a 3 technique, guard pulled away. He slid over and made the play in the backfield for a tackle for loss. Didn't go through the gap, slid down the line. And I was just so impressed with that play because that takes so much quickness to get over there. Get in the hip pocket of a puller and make a play like that. So I think that, that's kind of like who he is,
One concern I would have a little bit is like his size, complete 180 from, Devondre Sweat, who's
right.
just a massive human being. Whereas Byron Murphy's, checked out at about 6.5 feet, under 300 pounds. Obviously, in today's age, you don't have to be, plug the gap with like just being a massive dude, and he plays to his strengths. He's a quick guy, but does the height concern you at all? Is that something that's could hinder him at the next level?
I don't know that the height concerns me because of the lower center of gravity type of part of the game. What concerns me is possibly, if he had short arms with that, but he had normal sized arms. That wasn't the problem. He's a good athlete. I don't think that the height actually scares me that much. But I understand the concerns of it. I mean, you want guys to probably be about 6'2", 6'2", 305 is probably what you're looking for. If they move the way he does, and he was 6 foot, half an inch, and 297. So, but he's really young, and he has a lot of growing to do. So,
yeah, and speaking of that 6'2", same type of age, size. Jer'Zhan Newton, our number 1, first team All-American, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Incredibly versatile player. Tell us why he is our number 1. Obviously, he's kind of slid a little bit compared to others, but why is he still solidified as our number 1?
Well, I think it's really picking, like really pushing, like the sliding for him is the fact that he was so good 2 years ago and not as good this year. But I understand that. And also we have so many good players in this draft. They are vaulting themselves up. So he's sliding while Byron Murphy's jumping, but Byron Murphy also didn't start in the top 15 like Jer'Zhan did. I think the best thing you can talk about right now, Big Ten Defense Player of the Year. There are so many good football players in the Big Ten. And this guy from Illinois, is the number 1 player in that conference. He kind of just jumps off the page. He's like when he comes out of his stance, like he is in your face now. He's one of the quickest off the ball for this position by far. He has an awesome understanding of leverage in the run game. He splits double teams when guys get on him. He's got I thought his arms were shorter watching him on film because he's so big, like swole. He's so swole that I thought his arms were shorter because they were just so wide. I think that, he has the win rate. He still has a 15.5 win rate. It wasn't as good as Byron Murphy, but it's still really solid for the position. He's got a constant motor. He's going to destroy interior offensive linemen when they try to block him, especially the slower ones. He's just going to make them look silly. I think Jer'Zhan still needs to be number one on this list. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so with that being said, like we talked about, a lot of people are vaulting others over him just based on positional value and breaking out more so than him. With the pre-draft things that can raise your stock. He hasn't really done that.
He didn't go to the Senior Bowl. He didn't do the combine and those types of things. Vault others, even knowing they might. Like, film is the most important thing. No matter what y'all like, whatever happens during the off season, we love watching it, and it makes people talk. But film is the most important thing, always. And Jer'Zhan Newton has all the film you can ever ask for. So I mean, he is, and this is not a comparison. I guess it's actually just a level of ability. But like when Aaron Donald's dominance when he came out of college from Pittsburgh is what Jer'Zhan does at Illinois. It's not that he will translate to Aaron Donald, but he has that type of ability. So I think, and he had 8 sacks, this last year. He was the most productive sacker on Illinois. So even with the extra attention that he probably got.
Yeah, and with that being said, with the two guys, obviously Murphy and Newton are the first round caliber talents at the position. Do you see any kind of falling a little bit with the wide receiver kind of craze that we have going? Obviously, we had, I believe, our first mock, one of them going at 13, and the other falling all the way to in the 20s.
We had 23.
23.
Okay. 23 to Houston. And then I can't remember where Byron Murphy went on that mock. But 23 was to Houston for Jer'Zhan.
So with that being said, is that still the range that we're looking for? Will one of them fall out of the first? As we're seeing rumblings, I know we're heavy into free agency right now, but draft stuff as we prepare for our pro day is one at risk of kind of falling out and becoming a second round steal?
Well, if either of them fall out, there'll be steals for sure. But I think truly Byron Murphy is probably going to be the one that would fall out, more so because Jer'Zhan is going to test and do everything well. That's who he is. He already has that athleticism. While Byron Murphy, one slip up for him reminds you of what he did prior to this year, or prior to his breakout. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I look at it. I don't know that either of them will fall out of the first round. As confident as you can get that, I've seen mock drafts where one of them is going top 12. And so I don't see how either of them really fall out, but it's always a possibility in the draft season. Like, that's just how it goes. If one of them falls out, they will be a steal. Devondre Sweat's probably going to be a steal if you get the true production out of him. Braden Fiske is probably going to go overdrafted. Those types of things, But I think that the tiers are set that, these two are in their own tier. And then there's Devondre by himself. And then, everybody else has their own stuff going on. So I think that definitely need to talk about the tiers for these guys and where they could go. But these two are above and beyond the others.
Gotcha. Yeah, so with that being said, that about wraps up our defensive interior lineman positional ranking. Another episode. We've already released our linebacker one. Please go watch that. We have several, obviously, to do that you should be looking out for. So click that notification bell, subscribe, hit all of our socials that you see in the description below. We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, we got 9 more.
Yes.
So y'all are going to have to bear with us. We're going to get them out as fast as possible before we do another mock draft. We've gotten, I don't know, I guess. So this one was 7 players, and it's basically, based on if we think those guys are going to go in the top 3 rounds or have an opportunity to. We have position groups of 15. So wide receiver is 15 players that, we have to talk about. That's fine. We're going to make sure to talk about them. We don't want to overlook them at all. Just follow the journey, enjoy it. Draft season's awesome. So you have to, you have to also take a step back and be like, okay, why were these guys ranked so high? Why are these guys here before the combine, before the Senior Bowl? Because those things change how people think a little bit. And truly, film is always king. Whatever you saw on film is what's going to make the difference for these guys. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Spending time. Please like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, watch our other videos. We have free agency that we just finished reporting. Please go tell us what your thoughts are on those. Watch as much as you can, like as much as you can, interact. Let's build this community like we want to.
Yeah, and if you dislike our rankings, you are more than welcome to tell us. We are okay with that. I've been wrong in the past, and I will be wrong in the future. But we really appreciate y'all being here. Like Cam said, go check out all our other socials. We've been doing a lot of tweets recently to make sure that we stay up to date with the free agency stuff, and so definitely go check all that stuff out. And we will see y'all next time.